Is BitLocker useful in the case of stolen laptop? Imagine the case when a BitLocker-enabled Windows 10 laptop is stolen and the thief wants to read the data on the hard drive. He knows taking out and reading the hard drive on another computer is not possible because BitLocker is present, but he can simply try to brute force the Windows login password to get into the OS so he can still read the data. If it's a local account, it seems it's very feasible. Even in the case of Microsoft account, if I remember correctly, the user can still log in without internet connection, so I can assume that the hash of the password is also on the hard drive. The brute force password cracking method can apply too. So is BitLocker useful in the case of stolen laptop?
It's generally useful. If you have automatic unlock, some systems might allow a determined attacker to bypass it, but it would take significantly more skill than just booting up a USB stick. However, you should have a BitLocker pin to actually lock it down. The hash of the password is also on the hard drive. Yes, but they cannot read it, because the hard drive is encrypted. BitLocker on new laptops uses the TPM chip to implement automatic unlock. One key is stored in the TPM such that it can be read back only if the system is booting in exactly the same way, same firmware settings, same C hardware, same boot device, same digitally signed bootmer. This means that your login password is not used for unlocking the disk. At the time you're staring at the login screen, the disk is already unlocked, so that the OS could be loaded from it. Everything on the system partition, including the OS itself, except for bootmer, is encrypted. If you try to boot from a USB stick, or make any other changes, for example disable secure boot signature verification, the system disk will not automatically unlock anymore, even if it's still the same laptop. The only way to access it is by knowing the recovery key. So the thief cannot obtain your Windows password hash, which would indeed be fairly easy to brute force, and they're limited to poking at the actual Windows login screen, or performing some sort of hardware attack, for example cold boot and reading the BitLocker key out of RAM. Note: if the laptop has a discrete TPM chip, as opposed to FTPM, they can fairly easily intercept the actual signals between the TPM and the CPU and find out the BitLocker key this way. I believe BitLocker's TPM plus pin mode guards against this, because the pin is required by the TPM to reveal the key, and the TPM itself has a lockout mechanism. Finally, BitLocker won't prevent the laptop from being wiped or reused. The TPM is by design always possible to clear and reinitialize by anyone who can access the firmware settings screen. Unless the manufacturer also stores the firmware password in the TPM, like HP does. But apparently it doesn't stop people from unlocking laptops by replacing the whole chip.
This is the design scenario of the TPM chip. An attack against the security of BitLocker backed by the TPM, which it is if it auto-boots, must inherently be an attack against the system bus or RAM. On desktops, TPM has fallen because of adding C devices. Wait, what? TPM hashing checks? Well, no, not really, but you can't reasonably add C devices to laptops. There is the cold RAM attack that should work against laptops, but that's really about it. The attack against TPM on desktop cost a couple $100 when we looked 6 months ago. The attack against TPM on laptops was beyond our reach, and a fair estimate is probably a couple tens of thousands.
It's useful if you do not want your data to be accessed. However, for preventing use to the actual laptop, it won't make much of a difference. They can simply swap out the hard drive or just wipe and flatten it, and then set it up as if it was new. Still, it's a good idea to do so just so nobody can access your data.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.